Right, stop messing around, get on with doing the video. Hello, hello, hello! How's it going, everyone? Welcome back to the channel. It's, what, March now? And I haven't released anything in like 3 months or something? Things got busy. I've been gigging and working on the gen and other such things. Anyway, today's video is about this, or rather this. Is it focused? There we go, it's focused. The Boss DD-3T. Yeah, so if I've got a Boss delay pedal, that must mean that I'm not using my Seymour Duncan anymore. And I'm not. For the reason that it let me down yet again at a gig. This time it was picking up crazy noise, or generating crazy noise. Every time the LED flashed on it, a high-pitched whine was coming through the amplifier. And I initially thought it was the power supply, so I swapped to a different PSU, you know, made sure it was super fancy and regulated and everything, you know. Still had that problem. Actually had to play the show without a delay pedal, which is getting more and more difficult because the longer I have the pedal, the more songs it's included in. Yeah, so that was a bit of a pain in the backside. When I got home, I thought maybe it was my setup, so I literally isolated the pedal from all of my other effects and ran it into my practice amp with a fair amount of gain, and yeah, every time the LED flashed, whether the effect was turned on or not, I would get a weird sort of pulsing noise through the amplifier. You know, I don't know if it was specifically because of the LED, because that just sort of shows you how fast the delay's going, but yeah, it was horrible and I hated it. So I'm not using that pedal anymore, and my other half said, well, why don't you just get a Boss, because they're really good meat and potatoes pedals. They're like industry standard for a reason, and I figured why not, I'd give it a try. And really this video should be titled I should have bought a Boss in the first place. So like the DD3 has been in production for decades now, and alongside it they've had like the 5, the 6, 7 and 8, but this one's always remained in production in one form or another, and it's because it sounds completely its own thing, and I should have bought it in the first place. It sounds very 80s, but it also has a cool vibe to it that I don't know. I'm a big 80s metal fan. Somewhere in Time by Maiden, S tier, yeah? So obviously I'd like this kind of vibe. It takes a bit of getting used to because the delays don't like degrade in the same way as analog delays. It's like a perfect but quieter version of what you just played. It's, I guess, an acquired taste, which is why they also have the other ones that run alongside. They don't do a basic DD3 anymore. They do the DD-3T, and that's basically just because the delay circuitry is the same, but the control circuit's different. Now you can actually select, press and hold the pedal down, or have an expression pedal plugged in, and you can tap the tempo in. So it's made it even more versatile. But sorry, I've got a frog in my throat. Right, that's better. So yeah, I got this to replace the Seymour Duncan, who, don't get me wrong, they make great pickups. I've got a set of Duncan distortions in my Jackson Soloist. Cannot fault them. Absolutely wonderful pickups, sound amazing, really drive the front end of the amp, gives a nice breaking up sort of sound. My Orange breaks up in a way with those pickups that it doesn't with any other. They're really, really just superb. unfortunately, from what I've seen, the pedals are the opposite of that, which is a shame. But yes, back to the Boss. So yeah, basic DD3, but now with tap tempo. I think this latest version was released like 4 years ago, maybe. I love it. It's as simple as I've fallen in love with it. It's not coming off this board. And yes, this is my entire effects rig. And yes, it's mostly Boss. Just, you know, we've got HM2, which I've had since the early 2000s, I think. I bought it second-hand from like PMT on the Cowley Road in Oxford when I lived down that way. Boss tuner that was, again, came to me second-hand. I think this is actually the first Boss pedal that I've bought brand new, because they last so long and work so well. I've only ever really bought second-hand, and also they're not crazy expensive, but you can always get good deals on used ones. And then of course the Fender Treadlight Wah, which I reviewed a year or so ago. Still loving it. Still think it's great. Works really well with the rest of these. And yeah, that's pretty much it for my my entire pedal board. And this is a really welcome addition. Super simple to use. Got like 4 controls. Effect level for mixing in how much of your delays versus direct tone there is. And also, if you want to isolate just the delays, you can have a jack socket. Sorry, there's a jack socket for just that. So you can send that out into one amplifier, and then your direct out into another, or into different channels on your recording rig. That's great. I mean, that's also something that Seymour Duncan had, you know, isolate the actual effect itself. It's a brilliant idea. And I think this also has some bearing on the sort of balancing between those two jacks. I'll admit I've not used them because I just go straight into an amp. Feedback, how much of the signal is sent back into the delay to carry on delaying, and time. Now this is where it's really cool, and something that I've seen on a couple of other delays, but it works just so well on this one. So like, rather than having the entire time base divided between the probably about 270 degrees of spin on this knob, rather than sort of dividing the entire length of delay between those degrees, this knob here will set like short delay, medium and long. So anything like around 800 milliseconds is long, 200 for medium and 50 for short. And I suppose the best way to look at it is like that's the time base, so, and then this is the fine tuning of that time base, and it works brilliantly. And because it's a digital delay, it basically is a mini sampler that then repeats things. So the final setting on here is short loop, which is like, depending on how much time you've got set, well, that's how it seems to be. You can play something, then hit the pedal, and for as long as the pedal's held down, it'll loop the last sort of half second or so that went into the pedal, which is pretty cool. So you can sort of have it as like a one final big chord, you know, ba-dow, 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 and then by fiddling with the time control, it actually stretches or shortens that sample with associated pitch change. So you can actually sort of go bow, 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 which is like the first thing that anyone with one of these seems to do. And I'll admit I actually did that at the last gig. The end of 100 seconds, there's the big E chord, I think, and then hold it and then bring it down. But it's fantastic. I've also, just in the time that I've had this pedal, we were working on a new track called Festimol, and because I don't like fiddling with my pedals during a set, Hey Do I Know You and 3i both had the same delay settings, and sort of on the releases, they're slightly more tuned to the track tempo, but there's a good sort of halfway point that I can get that works for both of them with the pedal, and that was great. But for Festimol, I wanted something different, something a bit more full-on post-rock, and this pedal provided. So when it's in tap tempo mode, not only does the LED turn green, which is an important thing, I'm sure you'll agree, this control here changes the type of delay it is. So you can have, I think, quarter notes, dotted quarter notes, or eighth notes, which is kind of neat. So you can go from, you know, your basic to sort of U2 type style super digital delay kind of vibes. It's rad as hell, honestly. And so for when we start playing Festimol, there's a bit of an intro, and during that intro I turn the tap tempo on and select the middle one, which I think is eighth notes, and then that's me for that track. Fortunately, the delay lasts throughout the track. It's pretty cool. It's a track I really like, and it seemed to go down well. It was the first time playing it at the last gig we did, and it it went down really, really well. And it was really nice playing a show where I didn't have to worry about my equipment pooping itself, which is always a bonus. You know, nobody likes having to worry, is my equipment going to work? And also, the tap tempo remembers the tempo for as long as it's turned on. So at the beginning of the show, I was able to turn it on, tap in the tempo of the song that I was going to need it later, turn it off but leave it plugged in, play the set, and then as soon as I turn it back on, it went straight back to that tempo. So I didn't even have to worry about, you know, I could actually set it up in sound check and know that so long as it wasn't unplugged, it would be bang on tempo for when I needed it, which I think it's great. In case you couldn't tell, you know, I absolutely love this pedal. I think it looks great, it's got a great feature set, it sounds awesome, and it's not crazy expensive compared to some of the other pedals. It's probably cheaper than the Seymour Duncan that I got, and I think it's a much better unit. Yes, it sounds different to analog delays, but again, you know, it sounds just like Adrian Smith. So, I mean, yeah, gotta love Adrian Smith, gotta love that 80s super crystalline delay, or you do if you're around me, because if you're in my car and I'm listening to music, it's likely to be sort of that era of Maiden at some point. Anyway, yes, I think I've got about time to give you a couple of sound demos. Let's get to it. Okay, so I've got my guitar. I figure since it's always been accused of having an 80s kind of vibe, I might as well go era appropriate with the guitar. Not identical to Adrian Smith's, but as close as I can get. Yeah, let's get to it. So there you go, that's an example of a few of the sounds you can get from the pedal and how the different controls affect how it sounds in the overall mix of things. As I've said, you know, it's like, should I give a final thought and say, yes, I recommend buying this? Well, obviously I do, because I'm using it live. And as I said at the beginning of the video, I should have bought this in the first place. Honestly. Yeah, I was an idiot not to. Thanks for watching. If you liked it, there's a thingy down there for it. I mean, and if you didn't, well, sorry. But yeah, yeah, that's it. I was going to say something else, but I can't remember what it was. So again, thanks for watching. I should have a video about the Gen coming out soon. There's been some great developments on it. We're that close to actually getting it working, like fully. And yes, with that I shall say cheerio. It's almost lunchtime for me, so cheerio, I guess. Enjoy the rest of your day, and I will see you next time. Cheers.